Hey everyone, in this video we will be talking about migrating our databases from using SQLite to using Postgres. So in this video we'll talk about why we need to use another database engine other than SQLite, SQLite, which is already provided by Django for us. Okay, and we will talk about the prerequisites for using other databases. And then we will talk about how to specifically migrate our database contents, our current contents, because we already have stuff in there, into the new database. Okay. So why? So by default, Django works with SQLite. Okay. It is essentially a file in your file system. You can see it in your project. Okay. And when creating a Django app, it creates a database already for you using SQLite. Okay. SQLite is by no means incapable of being in production environments. SQLite developers say that it can perfectly be used in production environments and be used for mission critical data. However, it will not be able to handle concurrent users or data replication. So if you're expecting a lot of users, all the queries will be very slow because they will come in one at a time. Okay, and if you have a ton of users where you need to actually have multiple instances of your database, that is not possible because you only have one instance of your database. Okay. So what is it perfect for? SQLite is perfect for toy applications, something that you're just gonna hack around for a while, but not really for um, very very serious work, or applications who are not subject to a lot of change. Okay. Typically, when working in software, needs changed constantly. Okay, what you need to support changes constantly. In SQLite, you would have a hard time handling that if you are using SQLite. Okay, so for the sake of this class, instead of SQLite, like I've been saying, and like I had you install, we are going to use Postgres. Okay, it's commonly used. Okay, um, it has a lot of extensions that would enable it to be used for a lot of applications like GAS or mapping data, among other things. Okay. So what are the prerequisites for us to work with another database engine? First, we have to export the current contents of our database. Next, we need to create a Postgres user for our project, and then we will create a database in Postgres. We install packages to handle um, working with Postgres and all the database credentials. And then we need to update our settings file and then migrate our database. Okay, so step one, exporting the current contents is necessary only if you're moving from SQLite to another database, which is our case right now, because we already have data in our database. If a project is being created and set up with another database engine from the very beginning, you can start from step 2, which is creating your users. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's do that. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to export our database contents. So to do that, we go to our terminal, have our environment started, use the manage.py command, manage.py script to use the dump data command, Python manage.py dump data. Okay, so that will output the contents of our database. as you can see right here. And then we will save that. Okay, as you can see, this is a JSON file. So this is JSON type. So we will save it as db.json. Okay. Now we will have a db.json file that contains everything about our database. Okay. With that done, we can now create our user and new database. Okay, so we fire up Postgres. Here, we create a user by saying create user, and then we pass in a username. I'll just type username with password, and then in quotation marks the password. And then after that, we create our database. Create database. Let's say project db with owner, the username that we created. Okay, so that will create that user, that will create a database. Remember that username and password because you will be needing it later. Okay, now we're done. \q to exit, and then we move on to our next step, which is to install packages. So that is psychopg. So pip install psychopg 2-binary and python.env. Okay, so I have both installed. So what are they used for? psychopg is the one that will be handling connecting with Postgres or interacting with our Postgres instance, and then .env will be the one to handle our credentials in Postgres, because you don't want that data to be in plain text on your settings file. Okay, anyone with access to your database or to your Git repository would obviously be able to see that. Okay, so how do we do that? We create a file called .env. Okay, we create it here in our project folder. So touch.env. So I will see I should be seeing a .env file. Actually, I know that I have .env file if I go to my editor and open .env. Let's go first to our project folder again. So my .env already exists, and then here I create my DB name. So I put a key value pair, DB name equals project DB, that's what we put, and then DB user. Our DB username was username, and our password was password. Obviously not great passwords, but for the sake of this example, that will do. Okay, so now we have that. Now we go to our settings.py. Actually, before that, let's add that to our git ignore. So let's open up our git ignore, and then here add your .env. Okay, so that if I do a git status, I don't see it. Okay, so let's add that git ignore dot create .env. no, ignore dot ends. Okay, now let's go back to our settings file. And then in our import statement, let's add our next import from .env import load .env, and then we say load.env. Okay. Okay. I just remembered it should not be in your projects file. It should be in your settings. Or alternatively, you could just use load.env, and then we say that .env. Okay. So that would also work. I just pointed it a folder up, and then we go to our databases here. Okay, line 80. We see our engine is SQLite 3. What we need is Postgres. So we'll change this django.db.backends PostgreSQL psychopg2. Okay, and then the name would be, we would use the contents of our so this is our table name. We'll be using the contents of our .env. So what it does is, once our application is running, it will load the contents of our .env file as environment variables. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're getting the environment variables from our OS name db_name. Because we use .env, that db_name, db_name environment exists because of .env. Okay, and then our user os dot environ dot get, it's db user, and then our I'll just copy this. Our password is dbpass. Our host obviously is localhost, and then our port, we're just using the default port of Postgres, which is 5432. Okay, so once we've done that, okay, we're now we've set up our application to use Django Postgres, which means now we can say we already have our migrations files, so we can just say python manage.py migrate. And I have an error: improperly configured settings databases name value. So it looks like this is not working. Okay, which means that our error is that our load env is not working as we expect it to. So let's just move it. And let's just move our env. That's the easiest solution. If my terminal works with me. I'll just create a new one. I'll just re-access it. There we go. Okay. So let's just move our .env. env.env to our project folder. And then we should have it working. There we go. So we have loaded the environment variables through .env, and then now we're using Postgres. How can you ensure that you are using Postgres? So let's access Postgres. PSQL. We said project DB, and then let's access it using our created user. And then to see all your tables, you use the /dt command, and then you see everything. Okay. But if you try and see and see if you have anything in your lists item from, there's nothing because we have not yet moved our new data in. Okay, so to do that, we are going to dump that data. Okay, however, we need to do something else first, which is to ensure that all our data types are compatible. Okay, because when changing between databases, that would be a common problem. So let's go to our shell, our Django shell, python manage.py shell. And then from django.contrib.content types.models import content type okay, doesn't autocomplete, content type dot objects dot all dot delete. Okay, so we've deleted them. Now we can exit. Okay, now we can load our data. So how do we load our data? Again, we use our manage.py script, manage.py. Now we use load data instead of dump data, and then our JSON file. We've moved all our objects, okay, from our db.json into our database. Okay, so this db.json is called a fixture. Okay, now let's see that again. From Postgres, select everything from list tag, and it's there. Okay, so now we're done with that. We're done migrating our database. You can now safely delete your SQLite 3 file. So that concludes migrating our databases. In the next video, we will be talking about working with Django templates.